folks joining us. And I apologize. I was going to say, Anna, if you could wait till after the trivia session to record, but
I was wondering what you wanted.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So welcome again to the Transit Equity and Sustainability Lab. So we have really great presentations today. And Aaron, would you like to introduce our speakers?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the March 2021 Virtual Sustainability Lab. We have two guest speakers today that are going to talk about the transit system in St. Louis and how COVID has impacted it and how what the future outlook is for equity and sustainability and resiliency of that system. But it also, transit is very important for sustainability because transportation is the large or one of the largest emitters of greenhouse gases in the region. And if more of us were taking transit, our greenhouse gases wouldn't be as high. So transit is very important for being a sustainable region. So we are making a concerted effort here to bring transit more to the forefront of our discussions. So today we have joining us my personal acquaintance, Lisa Cagle. We've known each other for several years now. She is let me get her title straight, Director of Innovative Services at Bi-State. I don't know what that means. It's a fairly new position. But I'm sure Lisa's doing a bang up job with it. And joining her is new to Metro, Brian Rogers. He's the Director of Long Range Planning. At Bi-State, not Metro. Metro is a part of Bi-State, just for a little bit of clarity. So with that, before we get started, I would like to give Anna, if she would like a chance to introduce T-Rex to the audience, since they are our gracious hosts.
My name's Anna. I'm the event coordinator at T-Rex, and like Aaron and Gina were saying, we normally host this at our building downtown. We are a nonprofit co-working space, so we provide subsidized rent for tech startups and small businesses, and we are in a big refurbished building downtown. So if you have any questions about T-Rex, feel free to message me on here and I can send you my email address. But yeah, we love working with Sustainability Lab. We'll be happy when we can have people back in person.
Thanks, Anna. So now I will turn it over to Lisa and Brian.
Thank you, Aaron. I was trying to figure out how to unmute myself in presenter mode, so I think I found it now. So thanks, everybody. It's exciting to be here. Brian and I have not even got to be in the office together because he started so soon ago, which was actually not that, he was when my child was born, right? Is when he started, so November. But we're excited to be here. We're going to talk about public transit. And we are talking about sort of what we can learn through COVID and, what sort of things that we should focus on. But first, we wanted to be able to tell you about ourselves a little bit. So Brian, I'm going to let you go first.
So I'm Brian Rogers, as Lisa mentioned, newly hired in November, and actually my first child was born in November as well. But I am the Director of Long Range Planning with Metro. Lisa listed these questions on the slide for me to answer, and I kind of just left them kind of vague, but that's me. So I'm often known as the mediator. So I love bringing parties together that would normally talk to each other to try to uplift everyone. And that's kind of aligned with my job and also what I'll be presenting today. Interesting little fact about me is if you read my resume or like my job history on like a LinkedIn page or something, you think I was completely just I'm bonkers, because I've worked in the restaurant industry, I've worked in the nonprofit world, I've done development work in nonprofit world, and now here I am with Metro. But I'm sure you guys realize that, like, just like you all talking about the goals of one STL, all of those things intersect. So there is a sort of a method to the mayhem that is me. And below is a quote that I'd like for you all to take away from today's presentation. I'll pass it over to Lisa.
Thanks, Brian. So Brian is having him for long range planning is awesome for so many reasons. And also he brings this really cool skill set. And now, Brian, you also were born and raised in the St. Louis region, right?
I am from Wellston. And so I lived in both Wellston and the city across Hodemont, the city tracks, to literally jump back and forth between that part of St. Louis.
Cool. So I am not originally from St. Louis. I grew up down mostly in Southern Illinois. My dad was a coal miner, and somehow I became an environmentalist. You probably also, my name looks familiar because I have a twin sister named Lacey Cagle, who works with 1STL in sustainability. I know that's not confusing at all, but we work in very similar fields. But, you know, we converted our parents from being avid styrofoam users to actually using reusable napkins and recycling. So, you know, when you got twins sort of competing against your interests, like, you have to kind of listen to them. So that's good. But so just a little bit about me. I've done a whole bunch of different things too. I think this is why Brian and I get along so much. We have a very broad perspective. But most recently, I am working in the planning division along with Brian over at Bi-State Development in the Metro Transit Planning Division, because we actually do work on transit specifically, while there are other things that Bi-State does. And my takeaway that I want you to get from my presentation is sustainability is intrinsically tied to social equity. So what I'm going to do is kick us off and start talking a little bit about just setting the stage, right? And then Brian's going to get into the nuts and bolts of sort of like what's next for transit and what he's working on. Hope to leave you with like an inspiring vision. So that's sort of how we got this set up here. So we'll get started. Okay, so we know that the car is a really versatile asset. And we also know that it brings many environmental problems, including increased greenhouse gas emissions and high energy demands. This little hierarchy triangle, this inverted triangle you can see here, talks about sort of what are the lowest carbon versus highest carbon types of travel. Public transport is above the electric car, but the electric car is above the sort of, this is from Scotland, so the petrol diesel car, the gas powered car. And we've got over here a little picture of our battery electric buses. And so when we talk about vehicles and thinking about decreasing greenhouse gas emissions, oftentimes one of the easiest things for us to sort of look at is electric vehicles, right? They're exciting, they're sexy, and even our buses themselves was one of our trivia questions. We're really excited about the green buses that we have. They're an important part of our toolkit for sort of dealing with sustainability and transportation. And, you know, fuel usage, reducing fuel, the fossil fuel usage and that kind of thing. But they're only sort of one part of the things we have to deal with car culture, right? So you guys have probably heard about sprawl. So sprawl being sort of less dense and car-centric development in suburban or even further out ex-urban areas outside of a central city. And when we start developing our urban areas for cars, we start needing to put in new infrastructures, right? So one of the reasons that cities are a little bit more sustainable than other places is because there's sort of a density there, a density of residences and jobs, and you can think about the infrastructure that's needed can serve way more people than when you have to spread that out over big areas of land. And so there's some sustainability impacts that come from this sort of sprawling culture. And so a lot of our region, you know, St. Louis is a region where you see a lot of sprawl. And that is because we're sort of built based upon cars, really focused on cars. But cars are not the only kind of transportation that can influence development. So St. Louis was known as a streetcar city. Here is a map of the streetcar systems throughout St. Louis, the city of St. Louis anyway, in 1884. And as you look at this map and you can see all the different lines, and it's kind of interesting to play around with, But you can see here in this 1884 map that the development is clustered around those streetcar lines, right? So you see the streetcars, and they're helping people move further away from the city center, because with a streetcar available, this is before, cars are widely available to folks. You know that you can very easily get, a little bit further out to get back downtown if you need to. And it really impacted our development patterns here in the city. Streetcar suburbs like University City in St. Louis or Evanston in Chicago, they sprang up along the streetcar lines. But under these development patterns, streets were still multi-use because people still had to walk. They might, have a horse and buggy or some sort of thing that they used occasionally, but streets were still multi-use. They were for multiple users, not just the streetcars themselves. So this is sort of like the early suburbs, right? This is before the mass suburbanization and the resulting sprawl that we see in St. Louis. But three influential pieces of three influential things sort of made us move to this sort of more sprawling land use, right? So the creation of cheap, mass-produced homes, particularly in the outer suburbs, the declining cost of cars, and the growth of the road network, particularly interstate highways, as you see throughout the St. Louis region. And as an aside, white flight. So these maps that I'm about to scroll through, if you see the white dots, those are increases in white population. Red dots are decreases in white population. Black dots are increases in Black population, and orange dots are decreases in Black population. So this starts sort of in the 1930s. Each slide will be a different decade. So this is 1930 and 40, and then each one will be a different decade. So the process of post-war suburbanization resulted in sprawl, and governments consistently implemented pro-car policies at the local, state, and federal levels that effectively subsidized commuting by car at the expense of mass transit systems. So the comprehensive network of paved roads that were built during the mid-20th century enabled Americans, and particularly white Americans, to sprawl out from city centers into the newly growing suburbs. Streets and highways were built with public funds by issuing bonds, which were, the interest on them was paid by property taxes. So it's hard for any business to survive when it is forced to subsidize its competition. And private streetcar lines were, among that group as well. They saw their property taxes fund the development of the competitor, the highways. And so we see these distortionary policies about how funding is used kill off the streetcar lines that connected older suburbs to the city center and cause commuters to shift towards the car as a primary means of transportation.